Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Environment and Community Safety Decision Meeting. I'm Councillor Dave Ashmore, Cabinet Member for Environment and Community Safety. Just some general housekeeping. If you hear the continuous fire alarm sounds, just evacuate the room and the public gallery by the stairwells. Don't attempt to use the lifts. Assemble at the statue of Queen Victoria in front of civic offices. In order to comply with the Portsmouth Cultural Trust Fire Marshal regulations, please remember to sign out when you leave the building after today's meeting. And I have to draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting is live streamed from a camera at the back of the room, over there, and it will be on the Council's website. The camera will mainly capture the back of you making deputations. There might be some footage of you approaching and leaving the table, though, and of some people entering or leaving the room while the meeting's in progress. Members of the public are permitted to record the meeting on the understanding it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. And can I ask everyone to use the microphones provided when speaking, please? Okay. So first on the agenda, any apologies? No? Okay. And declaration of members' interests? Not for me. No? So we can get straight into the deputations. I believe we have 2 deputations today. And the first one. Okay, you've got, that's right, it's the one with a little hand on it, if it's anything like mine. I think they're all the same. Yeah, if you press that, you've got 6 minutes? Yeah. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, thank you.
I'm going to read from this to make sure that I cover everything. Okay. I'm Tracy McCulloch. I'm a member of the Green Party and also a member of Let Pompey Breathe. I want to raise issues with the committee here about the following and propose that the Council rejects this document as it stands. The key points that I want to make are the more stringent World Health Organization guideline limits as opposed to our city's guidelines. That's number one. Number two, an example comparison of given 2010 AQMA estimate as opposed to our recent 2018 document statistics. And overall, the unjustified optimism track record of assumptions and predictions that have been given. Number three, the response to DEFRA and the approach that the City Council has to the issue. If we compare the recent scandal of estimated 450 deaths, maybe 200 more at Gosport Memorial, even more Memorial Hospital, over 12 years, with the acknowledged 95 deaths in Portsmouth annually attributable to small particulate air pollution, PM 2.5, and an unknown extra number resulting from NOx pollution, over 12 years, that's over 1,000 deaths, yet PC seems to fail to realise the gravity of the situation. So, number one, let me start with Portsmouth City Council own targets in relation to World Health Organization targets. What we need is our council to not successively report that they will strive to attain their own set limits in order to just demonstrate compliance. They need to work much harder to bring air pollution well below the legal requirement. WHO limits are virtually half of those stated in this report. I would suggest that what the local council needs to demonstrate is ensuring public safety and work much closer to those World Health Organization guidelines, rather than compliance to those they use in the report. Number two, I want to pick out an example of a recorded prediction made in one of the Portsmouth City Council's previous AQMAs that demonstrates the gravity of the situation regarding the track record of over-optimistic assumptions that have been made and seem to have been the general approach and characteristic of this council in successive reports. In the 2010 Air Quality Action Plan, it records that there are 5 AQMAs. Taking the AQMA 6 as an example, through North End Fratton, I think you probably know it, along Fratton Road, Fratton Bridge, Kingston Road, London Road, until Stubbington Road, Junction Roundabout, Gladys Avenue. Although there are suggestions of some areas to improve in the 2010 Action Plan, in the document it was assessed that no additional remedial measures were being implemented. An estimate of the likely date for compliance within the AQO has been made, and AQMA 6 was predicted will be compliant by with NO2 by 2016. Obviously, the actuality is now that AQMA is now worse, and it's recorded in the recent report. This latest report also states that in the 2020 scenario, exceedances are predicted on the AQMA6 area, stating that will be the highest predicted annual mean NO2 concentration in 2020. In order to achieve the annual mean NO2 NAQO at all modelled receptor locations within the AQMA6 in 2020, reductions in NO2 concentrations of up to 4.6 micrograms per cubic metre must be made. This is just one example where, so basically from 44.6 to 40 to just on the legal. One example of where optimistic assumptions are made. Also, the inference made in other reports, as in the news article recently, is that there is little awareness of Joe Public's understanding of how to improve responsibility as individuals as to their actions and how they could benefit from less air pollution as a result. Whilst this point somewhat holds true, it is obvious that it requires much more than this to make change, and the policy and undertakings of City Council must be a significantly more focused and pragmatic one. Finally, the AQMA area is now close to the expansion of Portsmouth Academy sports area, where in addition there are going to be lots of school children directly affected by the high levels of air pollution. Number 3, in the executive summary of this document, it refers to the 2016 ASR. I'm not quite sure if that was 17 actually. I seem to think that the dates might have been mixed up a bit. So DEFRA has confirmed within their publication of their NAQAP on the 26th of July 2017 that there's no formal requirement for PCC to work closely with the experts in respect to alternative strategies beyond those proposed through the LAQM, and that Portsmouth has not been named within the government's air quality strategy to tackle NO2 as an urban area with high levels of pollution. Just a bit more. In any documents that are available to me, there's no mention that recent developments like the city centre road scheme have been presented to DEFRA, and it's obvious that this will make a serious impact on the conclusions as to the very optimistic meeting of targets that are stated in the report. Once again, it's a very major oversight in this report. Taking this and other worrying aspects of the air quality methodology into account, I'd suggest that we want to see the Council adopting a very different approach instead of the previous polite exhortations. Instead, when looking through the City's 2010 Air Quality Action Report, there's a section, when I looked through that 2010 Air Quality Action Report, there's a section on construction and developments which is omitted from this format of this document. The Council must become consistent in their approach to data collection and suppositions. This way, they will be able to turn their attention to drawing down funds that would help our city to draw up real plans for a holistic and accurately measured approach to major planning, and not give an unrealistic and positive spin in regard to the future forecast and previous inappropriate impact assessments. Any proposed models of city planning must be directly unified with accurate data and then reinforced in the long overdue air quality action plan for the city that we're still awaiting. One bold solution may be to introduce a charging clean air zone. That is not even presented as an option in this ASR. Considering the fact that air pollution is recognised by the WHO as the single biggest environmental health risk, the Council needs to address this as such. Okay?
Thank you.
I'll give you a copy of that if you want.
Yeah.
Shall I pass it on down? Shall I take a seat? Yeah?
Yeah. Second Deputy, you have 6 minutes. Thank you.
Right. Mr Chair, Councillor, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This is a complex subject, so I've prepared some handouts. My name is Mike Dobson. I'm a committee member on the Friends of Old Portsmouth Association dealing with traffic issues. We take a close interest in traffic and air quality. I'm pleased to see some improvements in the report following my deputation this time last year. However, I have major concerns with the content of this report, and I'm going to ask you to defer a decision until you've had time to consider the evidence. If you'd like to turn over onto the second sheet, please. My first concern is about inaccurate measurements. On this slide, the top left-hand side, there is a table with a green bar. This is copied from the draft ASR, and you can see on the right-hand side it specifies that the nitrogen dioxide or NOx tube in Lord Montgomery Way is specified at a height of 2 metres. The photograph on the left shows the NOx tube in situ. The photograph on the right, though, is a close-up, and I've measured the height of the base, the inlet of that tube at 2.3 metres. At the bottom of that photograph, you can see there's a red mark, and there's also, you can just make out on this cloudy day, the imprint of the tie wrap that would have been holding the NOx tube when it was at 2 metres. It's now at 2.3 metres. The text at the top right-hand side of the slide is taken from technical guidance, which confirms that concentrations of NO2 typically decrease with height. So we've got a NOx tube at 2.3 metres, but it's only recorded at 2 metres. It is under reading. My next point is about a flawed analysis. So if you look at the next sheet, it's a busy slide, but the chart there is plotting the monthly readings of NOx in Lord Montgomery Way, that same tube, for 2016 and 2017. The horizontal red line is the legal limit national air quality objective. The blue line are the 2016 readings month by month, and the yearly average is above the legal limit. The green line are the 2017 readings as presented in the draft ASR. But you can see that there is a very low reading at 17, under half normal readings. Now that appears to be spurious. There's no explanation given in the report, no justification for it, but it's still been included in the annual average. Hence, when that has been annualised, that shows that the annual average is below 40. However, because I consider that is a spurious reading, it doesn't match any readings in previous years, if we omit that from the annual counts, then that shows that the annual average is not only above the national air quality objective, but it's actually higher than in 2016, which indicates that not only is the air quality in AQMA 7 above the legal limit, but it's getting worse. The text box on the right-hand side are copied from the ASR, and although the City Council claims that all exceedances of the NAQO are located within AQMA 6, this indicates that actually AQMA 7 also has the exceedance. And I think it's going to get worse because of the increase in traffic for the White Link ferry. If this was public money, there would be an audit. There would be rigorous independent scrutiny. This is public health, but it seems that Port City Council does its measurements, does its analysis, and is marking its own homework. And I believe there are mistakes in that. The next point about inconsistent assumptions. I'm not going to read all the text on there, but I'll summarise this, that Port City Council used one database with a low traffic growth forecast for the source apportionment study. This predicts that NAQOs will be met in 2021 or 2022, and this has been reviewed by DEFRA. However, the City Council has used a different database with a traffic growth 10 times higher to justify the business case for the city centre road, and this is going to make air pollution worse. I don't think DEFRA has reviewed this. So the question is, why hasn't Port City Council directed consultants to use the same databases for estimated traffic growth? Moving on to my final point and the legal implications. I think I'm still in time, so I'll actually read what's in black. This was the High Court decision where the judge's ruling on Client Earth versus DEFRA, representing the government. If local authorities can identify measures other than charging clean air zones, which are at least as effective at reducing NO2, then such measures are to be preferred. However, the local authority must demonstrate that these measures will deliver compliance as quickly as a charging clean air zone. The Secretary of State must ensure that in each of the 45 areas, and that includes Portsmouth, steps are taken to achieve compliance as soon as possible, by the quickest route possible, and by a means that will make that outcome likely. Now, the blue text is taken from the City Solicitor's comment on the covering report, where he's discussing the possibility that campaign groups for private individuals might take legal action against a local authority for non-achievement of compliance. And he concludes, the defence is to fully commit and act as a reasonable local authority would. I suggest that by using inaccurate measurements, flawed analysis, inconsistent assumptions and drawing erroneous conclusions, a defence that Port City Council has committed fully and has acted reasonably will be weak. So, Councillor Ashmore, I know we all want the same thing, clean air that will improve the quality of life for Portsmouth people. I don't want Portsmouth to be prosecuted for non-compliance and having stringent remedial measures imposed on the city. So it's better to grasp the nettle now. You can't make a decision based on the evidence when that evidence is flawed. And I'll emphasise that one Knox tube that I've highlighted, there are quite a few around the city that are at the wrong height. So I offer a solution. Defer the decision. At the end of this meeting, I'm happy to wait. Please join me and walk to Lord Montgomery Way, where, as you smell the traffic fumes, you can see for yourself the tube that is higher than measured. And I've even brought the tape measure. So I'd extend that invitation to other councillors and to officers and to the news and any members of the public. And then we can walk to 2 other tubes in nearby roads where there are also high levels of air pollution and where the tubes are also higher than are reported. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Important stuff, obviously. I've got other commitments after today, so I won't be able to do that, but I'm happy to meet with you and go through those things myself, because, just to check on that. Very, very happy to. If you leave your contact details.
Well, my email is on the front there, and I can
Okay.
give you my mobile number as well.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Would you like me to stay here or to resume my seat?
If you go back to your seat, that'd be
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both for the deputations today. Following on from that, the next thing is it's the assessment of the air quality. So it's Richard, with the report on that one, which is a statutory report. So over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Lee. I'm the Regulatory Services Manager. I'm charged with meeting the government's requirements in terms of review and assessment of air quality and the submission of the annual status report, which should include a summary of the local air quality management systems that we have in place and we will deliver in the future. The report itself spans, perhaps unusually, 11 pages. A report of this length is not the norm. It's not my intention to go through every part of the report, but I'm happy to do so if necessary. What I have done is highlighted the most relevant sections of the report, and I will go through those in turn. The purpose of the report is fourfold. As indicated by the bullet points, the responsibility is for me to inform you of local air quality management and, of course, to highlight the relevant areas of the review and assessment report, which is the Appendix 1. In terms of legal responsibilities, clearly we do have to submit our reports to DEFRA for scrutiny, and I will highlight within the front-facing report the details of DEFRA's appraisal of our 2017 report submitted last year. I also like to inform you of the UK government's position in terms of air quality. It's a term Brexit is used very regularly in all national discussions, and air quality has been subjected to those discussions as well. So I'd like to highlight the UK's position. And I also want to propose to concentrate on the sections within the ASR in relation to actions that Portsmouth City Council are taking and are proposing to take in terms of a air quality action plan. So the recommendation for you today, Chair, is to approve the publication of the 2018 ASR as attached to the report, Appendix 1. You will see that I've noted by asterisk section 3.3, quite unusually perhaps, it's really a reiteration that this document needs to be submitted to government by the 30th of June, and that they will scrutinise the report. So although we may approve it, or you may approve it today, it will not be ratified by the government until they have an opportunity to do so themselves. The reasons for the recommendation are, of course, to fulfil our duties, our statutory obligations. There are growing concerns with regard to the manner in which air quality is reported, and the actions are demonstrated by Portsmouth City Council. And therefore, what we have done within this year's ASR is slightly gone away from the template that DEFRA sets for us, and that's also highlighted a little bit further on in the report. DEFRA's template is very prescriptive. They, just a way of explanation, they provide us with the titles and some narrative to form part of that report. Their template is very, very clear in respect to what they are expecting to see within the report and the manner in which it is reported by Portsmouth City Council. Although we have deviated from it, and quite a bit, in terms of its content, they will look at our report in some detail to ensure that we haven't deviated too much, but we have highlighted the areas which they want to see from all the local authorities who report on these issues. The key areas for 2018-19 are, of course, to deliver reductions in air pollution, to, of course, comply with our statutory obligations in terms of reporting and the local air quality management regime. Part of that is delivery of the 2018 ASR. Part of the assessment is, of course, to look at what DEFRA told us in regard to last year's report. There has been a ministerial direction forced upon Portsmouth City Council earlier this year, and this front-facing report details what that requires us to do. And of course, what we need to do is to focus upon the air quality action planning that Portsmouth City Council needs to do. So the need for action, section 5, I haven't provided a lot of information here, and I haven't done that because I think the health implications in terms of poor air quality are very well established. And I don't think that any agency is in any doubt exactly of the seriousness that air quality presents. In section 6, I'll give a brief account of the local air quality management regime. Again, it recognises our statutory duty to declare air quality management areas, and the deputies have told us a little bit about that and the 5 current areas that are in place. And of course, that air quality that requirement to publish management areas leads us to look at those areas continually, year by year, and look at an action plan. And it's worth highlighting already that the Appendix 1 contains a table of a large number of areas where Portsmouth City Council are focusing our attention already without looking at the air quality planning process. 6.5 recognises the extra analysis which is within the ASR, so it's worth highlighting that table within the ASR report. DEFRA's appraisal of our last year's report, generally they said it was in accordance with the reporting programme, i.e. the template and the information they wanted to receive. However, they did provide narrative in respect to 18 measures, or 18 comments, or 18 areas where they wished to see some change. And as I say in section 7.4, all of their comments are of course equally important to us, but it's worth mentioning perhaps particularly that they would like to see greater emphasis on targeted emissions, so values in regard to actions, and they make reference to the areas which are outside AQMAs. As we reported last year, there were 2 areas of exceedance outside the AQMAs. It's worth putting in a little bit of narrative here about exceedance, because exceedance relates to where the public are expected to be regularly exposed to air quality. Otherwise, I would talk about a level which is not compliant with the objective. It's a subtlety, but it is important to recognise that fact, which is also contained within the City Solicitor's comments at the end of the report. What the comments from DEFRA last year stated was that they would like to see additional monitoring. And on previous years, we've reported regularly on 28 sites. Last year, we decided to increase that number of sites by a further 17 because of public interest with regard to potential exposure, public exposure, perhaps outside schools, and in sensitive environments. So last year, we increased the number of sites by 17, and this year, as a result of DEFRA's interest and comment in regard to the number of monitoring sites, we further increased the number of monitoring sites by 59, and that now, if my math is correct, suggests that, tells us that 104 sites are being monitored around the city. In terms of government enforcement compliance, there has been well-documented infraction proceedings taken against the UK government in respect to air quality, and these proceedings have not yet been concluded. EU law is converted into UK law, and it's quite likely that when the UK leaves EU, if indeed it does, in broad terms that means the objectives which are set out within EU law will be converted into domestic law moving forward. The information I've received from the government's publications is that there's no plans to change the limit values that are currently in place by the EU, and the EU, of course, are the limit values which have set and have been referred to by Tracy, and it's these levels that we are required to report against. The government have already put out a lot of narrative to sort of allay concerns about the air quality standards following our exit from the EU, and they've said that there's no plans to change the limit values moving forward. That doesn't mean to say that they won't, it's just that at this point in time there are no there's no plans to change. In terms of the proceedings taken against the EU, I set out in section 8.6 that private action has been undertaken and has succeeded against the UK, and that these proceedings have resulted in the government producing a number of different air quality action plans and advice to local authorities in respect to reducing nitrogen dioxide levels. The most recent plan, for tackling roadside nitrogen dioxide concentrations was published by the government in July 2017, and that sets out how the government will bring the UK into compliance with those EU nitrogen dioxide concentration objectives. However, following a judicial review on the 21st of February this year, it was a judicial review that led to a High Court judgment in February this year. A supplement to the national plan has been produced by the government, and it requires the publication of a further supplement by the 5th of October 2018. I think it's very clear that the government have set out their stall with regard to non-compliance. Because they've taken a formal line against Portsmouth City Council on the 22nd of March 2018, issuing that legally binding direction under the terms of the Environment Act 1995. What we must do as a result of this is to consider measures that could bring forward compliance with the specific target date within the shortest possible timeframe. Again, that's already been mentioned this afternoon. And I've said in 9.4 that this, and it is a new approach because it's the first time that the government have issued legal action against Portsmouth City Council. This new approach represents a further very clear caution in respect to legal sanctions available by the government to require local authority to address pollution problems. That's within the report itself, that is clear, and it's within the ASR. We should therefore be reflective about that potential for further action, and of course we should be more so where non-compliance with the objective levels is occurring. The direction requires us to submit a targeted feasibility study by the 31st of July 2018. PCT is not required to deliver a plan in relation to this direction. This is because the government's modelling of the road links which it is targeting within that ministerial direction, it says itself that the government say themselves that these links will become compliant quicker than the time it is suggested to bring in a charging zone, for example, which is perceived to be the fastest means of bringing an area into compliance. So that is within the report. Mention of clean air zones is within the report, and the explanation as to why this targeted feasibility study is not looking at clean air zones is within the report in section 9.6. It's important to note that the target zone, which is required by the ministerial direction, excludes the vast majority of AQMAs within the city. It focuses 2 link roads, and they are identified within 9.7. It's also worth noting in 9.8 how DEFRA have come to that conclusion. And they have used a model which is specified within an EU directive, which has a relatively low resolution rate of 1 times 1 kilometre. Lots of modelling being undertaken is within metres, so it might be 3 times 3. So the resolution of this model is quite poor. And what we have done is we've looked at the levels of pollution along that route from our monitoring devices, and we've reported those to DEFRA for their comment. (9.9) is a reiteration that the government will produce a further report in October of this year, which will draw its conclusions from the information that we, along with other local authorities, have supplied to them within the first 9 or 10 months of this year. The Air Quality Action Plan, this is not a report in respect to the Air Quality Action Plan. It is a report generally about air quality procedures in local air quality management, but it is not an Air Quality Action Plan. It merely complies with, or attempts to comply with, the template as said by DEFRA. What is clear is that within this narrative and within the report itself is that Portsmouth City Council has published a strategy and needs to work forward to deliver a plan from that strategy. It does set out a timeline, but it does also set out that extremely difficult choices need to be made in regard to how we meet compliance, particularly in the areas where compliance is still occurring or in areas where there is some doubt. Last year I reported a number of areas such as the High Street in Old Portsmouth that were an air quality management area, but we continued to assess the levels of pollution in that area, and we had decided not to revoke but to keep it under some observation, and we will continue to do that this year. The levels in the High Street Old Portsmouth are reported within the ASR itself. I've also said in 10.3 that we need to find new combative solutions. Difficult choices need to be made, particularly along AQMA 6, which is the central spine which Tracy made reference to. Of course, all those measures, all the measures which are in the table within the report itself, have to go through a consultation process. And the consultation process and the management team with regard to assessing that process is detailed within the report. What needs to occur is that there needs to be consultation with regard to those measures and how they're introduced, and there also needs to be a study in terms of feasibility of introducing those measures and the benefit that they can be derived from them. These will be assessed against critical success factors. This is not my terminology, it's terminology used by others, and I've set those points out within the bullet points that follow and are within 10.5. I can't tell you what measures will be introduced firmly, because there will be process, there will be studies, and there will be modelling of the chosen choices, because we need to be clear that what we choose will work towards compliance. We need to deliver compliance quite clearly, as I've set out within the report, and our mindset needs to be not only to deliver compliance, but also continually improve the level of air quality in Portsmouth. Section 11 sets out an abstract of the 2018 ASR conclusions. Effectively, we have gone a little bit further than we did last year and a little bit further than the government requires of us. They require a rolling 5-year assessment. That is the requirement that they have set, and that is what we deliver. But also what we've done is we've considered this rolling 5 years, so from 2013 to 2017, and we've compared that with the previous 5-year period from 2012 to 2016. What we've also done, which is not required within the template, is assess the level of pollution within the last year, so comparing the 2016 figure with the 2017 figure. And I've tried to very simply describe that within Table 1, and where an improvement of air quality could be concluded as a result. And you'll see with the 5-year rolling trend, there has been no improvement in air quality when we look at that statistic. In terms of 16 and 17, however, and looking at the comparisons over that 12-month period, there has been a significant improvement, with 65% of the monitoring sites, either the 28 original sites, being decreasing in levels of nitrogen dioxide over that 12-month period. In terms of other stats within the report, yes, we have said that there is only one area of exceedance, and that is Air QMA 6. But quite clearly, the report does demonstrate that we will continually assess air quality in line with the government's requirements and in line with their technical guidance. And if I may, I do make reference to Mr. Dobson's report. The technical guidance within the report stipulates quite categorically how a tube should be located. And whilst I haven't personally checked every site, I am as confident as I can be that we are in compliance with the technical guidance. And in terms of the 2-metre height, if I may clarify that, maybe not today because I haven't got the technical guidance in front of me, and I wouldn't like to be quoted incorrectly, but I can clarify what the technical guidance says in relation to the tube height. In terms of missing data and adjustments, I can also clarify, if that's helpful to you, Chair, what the guidance says in regard to missing data and how data is averaged and what corrections are added to that. There is quite a bit of reference within the ASR, however, with regard to how we validate our data and our monitoring results. There's a section specifically set out within the ASR about how we do that. It is a summary, and it's nowhere near as comprehensive as the technical guidance. It is a summary of the guidance, if I would say that. So it's also worth reiterating that we submit our data, we submit the reports, and it is for DEFRA and their experts to audit us should they wish. And clearly they audited the results of last year, and they did make 18 comments, and those comments are confirmed within the report completely, and are our responses. They are completely within the report. In terms of the future, my apologies, I need to make one further reference in terms of the abstract, is that we are reporting in the table 1 on nitrogen dioxide levels, as is recorded within the tables. However, 11.5 does talk about particulates. It talks about it very briefly. We have a number of monitoring stations. We have increased our capacity, which was reported in last year's ASR, in regard to monitoring particulates of PM10, but particularly 2.5. And our assessment of the data, that there are no exceedances of the particulate objectives. And again, that is set out within the ASR. In terms of the future in section 12, I've looked at the government's, what they're intending, and really what I've tried to summarise here is that the government still have concerns. And particularly, I've quoted Mr. Neil Parish MP in section 2.3. And I think that quote, so I won't read it out, is quite telling with regard to what the four-way inquiry is looking at local authorities to do. I will reiterate section 14, which is the city solicitor's comments. Mr. Dobson did make reference to this. It is in the report. And we need to do better in terms of compliance, and we need to be aware of our responsibilities, and we need to be aware of challenge with regard to compliance and those responsibilities. The city solicitor has been very clear in 14.4 that there is a risk of private action against the local authority if compliance is not met, or indeed we cannot prove that we have fully committed to compliance. I will mention section 15. As I said, I'm the responsible officer for monitoring pollution, so there is reference to the resources that are required to continue the monitoring regime, particularly perhaps in light of our increase in the number of monitoring devices that we're deploying this year. I think it's, or I hesitate when I quote things and I can't remember the stat. I think it was 123% increase, but forgive me if that's correct on other years. So I hope that provides a fairly inclusive summary of the front-facing report, the manner in which we've recorded the monitoring levels for the last 12 months or for 2017 calendar year. However, if I can assist with any questions, of course, I'm very happy to do so.
Speaking of which, any questions you'd like to ask or comments? Okay, well, if I make a comment on what you've said and combine with what we've heard today as well, I think they overlapped pretty well there. But as you say, it's a statutory report, and it's not one that we sign off to say, yeah, everything's hunky-dory. That it goes to get scrutinised. It needs to be done, and then it goes to get scrutinised. So it's, you know, it's not the be-all and end-all today. This is what we've got. This is going off, and it'll be up to other people to scrutinise it. So I think we've got enough in here, as it's built up over the 12 months and beyond that. I think we've got enough here to send it on. There's no problem on that. What I'm also encouraged is the amount you've increased the monitoring on it as well. So, the monitoring devices on it as well. So that proves that we're doing more, we're measuring more. So it's not very limited. It's actually progressing. So we can actually see more data. Obviously, more evidence, more data provides more evidence to see where we're going with this. You know, in combination with what you're saying, what we're saying, everything else. And I think you made in the section, if I just go back to it, the implementation of a new comprehensive air quality action plan is in there as well. So that's also something else that you could take heart from. That it isn't going to just be as it is. There's going to be an improved one coming out. So I think the things that you've brought up today are obviously air quality is, extremely important. As you say, it's a public health emergency by the WHO. There, it's something we can't just ignore. But I think what we're doing and where we're going with this, you know, it's actually assisting what you're saying here and assisting with air quality in general in the city. So I think we have this will get signed off and it will go, and we'll see what's what on that one. But I think we're going in the right direction with this one, especially with the new air quality action plan on that one. Okay, so yes, I'm minded to recommend that. Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you there, Richard. You may. So the next one is Project Integra Action Plan, which is report by Colette Hill there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
So the purpose of this report is to outline the Project Integra Action Plan, which was approved at the Project Integra Strategic Board on the 15th of February 2018. Project Integra, or PI, is a partnership of local authorities with responsibility for waste management in Hampshire, Portsmouth and Southampton. And also the long-term waste disposal contractor Veolia Environmental Services is a non-voting member of the partnership. The Project Integra Strategic Board is constituted as a joint committee of the 14 local authorities and is the decision-making board for the partnership. But the PI action plan needs to be agreed by each local authority through their own decision-making process. And this plan sets out the medium to long-term actions for the partnership. These are all listed. I'll just quickly go through them. So communications and behaviour change. The work that the partnership's undertaking complements the work that we're currently doing to reduce the amount of waste produced by households. Impacts of new development. This will support the work that we're doing to deliver a more sustainable waste management service that can cope with the future housing and waste growth. The waste prevention plan, we already work to encourage reuse of bulky items, so when residents phone we give them advice about different ways they can dispose of their items. And we're also making changes, hopefully, to our waste management policy, which aim to change behaviours and provide clarity to residents on their responsibilities. The Hampshire Waste Partnership Project, so this is a sort of a group that's working to consider the medium and long-term provision of recycling services in the county. So how are we, this is where we're working to look at expanding the range of materials that we could potentially recycle for our residents. So we're already doing that as well. There's some joint working outside of Project Integra, and PCC contribute to the wider strategic discussion through PI, and we also benefit from the learning and research carried out by PI partners. Health and safety, we already attend the health and safety group, and that helps us because we can bring practices back and make sure that we're working with our contractor to ensure that their health and safety is industry standard. We've already previously made a decision about the glass procurement contract. The training, we don't benefit from the driver training arrangements, as these are more for in-house DSOs, and we have a contractor, but we could benefit from future training opportunities for other staff. Waste composition analysis, that's where we get information about how our refuse is made up, and that will help us to target resources and also help with planning and future waste provision. So overall, the PI action plan complements the work and the direction of our own waste management service. It could be considered that the plan could be more ambitious, but I think one of the restrictions is that our infrastructure is built to last, if you like, and it's difficult to make changes during the course of the contract to the infrastructure. But that's not to say that we're not working on different issues, which is part of the Hampshire Waste Partnership project. At the same time, I think along with this, PCC should continue to work on local initiatives to reduce waste and improve recycling, and we may benefit from the joint approach to waste management across the county. Therefore, I would recommend that the Cabinet member agrees to adopt the principles included in the Project Integra Action Plan, which covers the period 2018 to 2021.
Thank you, Colette. Just ask Councillor Fielding, any questions you'd like to ask?
My main concern is about how we can further improve the recycling that's going on in the city. And I understand that the Hampshire plan goes some way to sort of further develop it, and I realise that we're restricted by our infrastructure, but what can we take away from this that we feel as though we're moving forward on the number of items or the...
I think being part of the wider partnership means that we can look at our infrastructure as a partnership. So we share all of our infrastructure with the rest of Hampshire and Southampton. And so it's only, I think only working together can we make significant changes to that. For example, looking at the types of materials we can collect at our materials recovery facilities, or the MRFs. We don't just have a MRF to ourselves, we share it. So unless we're working with them as a partnership, I don't think it would be easy for us to make changes in Portsmouth without working with the wider partnership, because it will require changes that may require investment, and working together we can hopefully secure some of those opportunities. Whereas I think if we don't join in, then we're just on our own, and it's a much more difficult battle for us to win.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Colette. Yeah, I think you're right. As you say, it's better working with each other around, and rather than trying to do it on your own on that. Especially when it comes to infrastructure and things. Councillor Fuller makes a good point about trying to improve what we can do with recycling as we are at the moment. So I think that this is the way forward, and I think this is I'm happy to recommend it. So. Yep, I'm happy to make the decision to recommend it. Thank you. So that's that one. And the next report, also from Party Colette, is the outcome of the waste reduction trial and proposed change to waste management.
Yeah.
If you'd like to present that, please. Thank
So,
you.
under the terms of the Environmental Protection Act, as the Council is classed as a waste collection and disposal authority, and as such we have a statutory duty to collect household waste from all domestic properties in the city. But under this Act we have specific powers to stipulate a number of things, and these are the size and type of the collection receptacle, where the receptacle must be placed for the purpose of collecting and emptying, and also the materials items which may or may not be placed within the receptacle. Currently we operate a weekly refuse sack collection and a fortnightly wheeled bin or container recycling collection, and along with that we provide a network of recycling bring banks for glass and textiles, and in addition residents can take household waste to the Household Waste and Recycling Centre, or the TIP, at Port Solent. The overall cost for waste management to PCC for collection and disposal are in the region of £9 million per annum. Portsmouth has one of the lowest recycling rates in the country and are currently 340th out of 350 local authorities, with a recycling rate of just 24.7%. So the purpose of the waste trials that we've carried out across the city was to see if we could achieve a reduction in waste tonnages in order to be able to retain weekly waste collections. It was hoped we'd also get an improvement in recycling, and so the change we made in the trials was to move to a 140-litre wheeled bin or a 3 standard bin bag system for general household waste. So recycling wasn't part of this trial, it's just about refuse. And the change to how waste should be presented was designed to encourage behaviour change. A reduction to waste disposal charges would mean that PCC could retain the weekly collection frequency. So the team have completed 7 waste trials across the city. 5 of these have been wheeled bin collections, and we also carried out 1 reusable sack trial and 1 restricted number of bin bags trials. And about 9,500 households took part in the trials, which is about 10% of the city. So I'm going to go through wheeled bin trials first. So they were carried out across the city in Cosham, Paulsgrove, Hilsey, North End and Southsea. Also Milton now, but that wasn't rolled out in time for this report. And households in these areas were issued with a 140-litre wheeled bin, and the weekly collection frequency was retained. Residents had to contain all of their waste within the bin, and side waste, so bags outside of the bin, and big open gaping lids were not permitted. It's worth noting that all the surrounding local authorities, so Havant, Fareham, Gosport, and many other local authorities in the country, operate a fortnightly refuse collection with households issued with a standard 240 litre wheeled bin. They also operate a similar no side waste policy. So the good news is that waste in the trial areas is significantly reduced, with reductions ranging from 11% to 21%, which you can see in Appendix 2. I have looked at Milton today. We've done 3 weeks there, and that's 16% down. So it's the same pattern repeated wherever we do it. Recycling has mainly increased in these areas, ranging again an increase from 2 to 7%. Only one area, which is the Southsea area, has seen no change in recycling tonnages. It is a heavily student populated area, so it may be that there's a change there because of the time of year that it is. Compliance with the scheme was initially high and improved quickly to less than 1% non-compliance, so most people can get on with this really, really quickly and easily. We also did 2 other trials, a reusable sack trial in Fratton for 10 weeks. Households were issued with a reusable sack for rubbish, which contained, again, about 140 litres, and the weekly collection was retained. Same thing, no side waste, no additional waste. And we also did a separate but parallel trial limiting the number of refuse sacks a household could place out, again for a 10-week period. Residents were issued with 3 PCC bin bags per week, and that equated to roughly 140 litres of capacity. And again, excess waste was not collected. In these trials, we also saw significant reduction in rubbish collected and an improvement in recycling rates. Compliance in these trials was less than the wheel bin trials, with 4% of residents continuing to put out excess waste despite notices reminding them of the correct procedure and limitations. And when the reusable sacks were used correctly, this did improve the street scene and street cleanliness, but there were unfortunately issues with the sacks being left out after collection, as they would be, and they were blown about a bit in the high winds, so we probably won't be recommending that. In all of the trial areas, residents could apply for additional capacity. So although we were saying we're restricting everyone to 140 litres, if you have a large family or particular needs, small children in nappies and things like that, you can apply for a larger bin or a greater bag allowance. And we also, in the trial areas, we issued an additional 419 recycling containers where people either didn't have them or didn't have one that was big enough. And 58 households joined the Green Waste Club in the trial areas during the trial period. The trials demonstrated that residents could reduce the amount of waste that they put out for collection if there are appropriate boundaries and controls in place. It sort of forces you to recycle, really, because you can't just put out as many bags as you like. Whilst residents appear to have been restricted, larger bins are available for residents who produce more waste, so all they have to do is demonstrate that they're fully recycling. During the trials also, we found that many residents didn't understand what they could recycle in their wheelie bin, and face-to-face interactions helped to improve the understanding of what could be recycled and why. So in light of the learning from these trials, it's proposed that the Council make some changes to the waste management policy in order to make a saving that will enable us to retain the weekly collection frequency. And it also will help us set out a clearly defined process to ensure residents and members and officers are clear about our responsibilities regarding waste. Where suitable, it's proposed that all households are issued with a 140 litre bin for their rubbish, a wheeled bin. In areas where it may not be easy to store a wheeled bin, it's proposed that households can place out up to a maximum of 3 standard bin bags per week, and this equates to approximately 140 litres, which is the same size as the wheeled bin. Where households share a communal collection, it's recommended that bin capacity is reviewed and a further report submitted regarding communal collections. This may exclude some houses in multiple occupation, and the landlords of such properties will be advised which scheme they are in. We had some of those in our Southsea trial, and we've worked with them to include them. Households who regularly exceed the standard capacity of the 140 litre bin per week can apply for additional capacity, so they'll either get a larger bin or additional allowance for sacks. But to secure this, they will need to demonstrate their recycling fully within the Portsmouth City Council scheme. Households may purchase... Just stop. Yeah, nearly. Just getting to the end. So households... Oh, it's going to... Yeah. Households may purchase a limited amount of additional capacity for occasional additional waste. And households who need additional recycling capacity can contact the council for a larger or additional container. There's no assessment required for that. All residents will be notified of which scheme they are in ahead of the implementation, and they'll receive an information pack. Residents who are deemed to be in the 3 standard bin bag trial may opt in and have a wheelie bin if they're able to store it off the highway. The information pack will also explain what they need to do with their refuse and recycling, and detail how to apply for a larger bin or additional capacity, or to opt in for a wheeled bin. And ward councillors will be notified of the start date schedule once we've finalised that. We will make efforts to minimise changes to existing collection days, but there may be some slight changes required. But where they're necessary, we'll apply them to both refuse and recycling, so that you still have to do it all on the same day. We'll update our website to help residents understand what they need to do and how to contact us for support or advice, and that will include some frequently asked questions. So the proposal for the sort of timetable is that the wheeled bins and 3 standard bin bag limit will be rolled out to households by the 1st of December this year, and that an education approach regarding excess waste will precede any potential enforcement action. There is some legislation that we can use which could result in fines being issued for repeat offenders who fail to kind of present their waste in the way that we're asking them to. And then in February next year, we'll review the capacity of blocks of flats with another report to follow. If areas with wheeled bins deliver similar reductions in waste as been achieved in the trials, as well as the ones where we've got the 3 bag limit, rubbish tonnage could be significantly reduced. A 10% reduction would deliver an ongoing estimated saving for waste disposal of about £270,000. Therefore, I'm recommending to the Cabinet Member for Environment and Community Safety that you note the outcomes of the weekly wheeled bin and weekly bin bag trials, and approve the strategy for retaining weekly refuse collection, and that you agree the timeline for the changes required to retain weekly refuse collections.
Thank you, Claire. As always, Councillor Fielding, any questions or comments to make?
No, I'm just quite encouraged to read the report and the findings that have come from it. I think anything we can do to retain the existing system of weekly refuse, but reducing the amount of refuse that households are issuing, is the best way that we can move forward. So yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your work on that, Claire. It's one of those things, isn't it, where the waste is going up. It's expensive to deal with, and as you say, Portsmouth's recycling very, very low at the moment. So yeah, and it said I remember shadowing this position and seeing it come in, and I was, especially Fratton where I represent. But people are on board with the way it's going. People are on board with it. They want to recycle more. And as you say, people are up for recycling, being greener, reducing the wastage on that, and obviously, as you say, retains the weekly bin collection on that. I don't think going away from that would be conducive to the city. So this is a good way of doing it, good way of improving recycling, reducing the wastage there and keeping the bin collection. Yeah, you said you can, if needed for the occasional thing, you can purchase some additional capacity on that one. So that gets around to a lot of people in the trial areas. When I spoke to them, we might have had 1 week where I had a child's birthday party or something, and it's an additional one. But no, this sort of circumnavigates that. So yes, and as Councillor Fielding said, we're all on board with moving forward for a greener city, a cleaner city. So yeah, I'm minded to recommend this decision. I've made the decision, and I recommend it. Yep. I will get used to all these terminologies. You'll have to forgive me. It's my first one. But yeah, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Colette, for your hard work on that. And I know he's not here now, but thank you for Richard as well for that. Thank you.